Hello, everyone. When you look at the global pharma market, the largest incumbents, legacy multinationals with decades of history, dominate headlines and market caps. But when you look more closely, the real growth is coming from biotech companies. Most of them are small, lean, and focused. And in terms of sheer market size, they represent a fraction of the pharmaceutical landscape. But when you shift the lens to revenue growth rates and commercial momentum, biotech consistently leads the industry. The global R&D market is projected to grow significantly through the next few years, and a significant share of that growth is driven not only by giants but by nimble biotech firms operating at the cutting edge of science. They don't carry legacy infrastructure weighing them down. They have a singular focus, which is innovate or die, and that focus is clearly reflecting in numbers. So, what exactly is biotechnology? At its core, biotechnology harnesses biological systems and living organisms to improve both human lives and planetary health. But that single line only begins to tell the story. Its scope spans for critical dimensions. First, healthcare, covering therapeutics and diagnostics. Second, agriculture, through genetically modified crops and improvement in yields and resilience. Third, industrial biotech, including fuels and enzymes, and underpinning all this are advanced technologies like genetic engineering and synthetic biology, which now being directed at some of the world's most pressing challenges like food security and environmental sustainability. On the economic front, biotech is projected to grow at an 8 to 10% CAGR globally. This is strengthening innovation and driving economies through R&D investment, biomanufacturing, employment and regional innovation ecosystems. From a regulatory standpoint, bodies like the FDA and EMA ensure safety while adopting frameworks for emerging technologies. In short, biotech is not a niche, but it is a platform for the 21st century. The expanding reach of biotech and biotech adoption unfolds in phases, and when you map it across industries, the canvas is remarkably broad. In healthcare, we already have carrier screening and prenatal testing. Near term CAR T cell therapies and transforming liquid tumor treatment and liquid biopsies are revolutionizing cancer detection. Further ahead, these technologies can potentially enable applications such as lab grown organs and embryo editing, subject to scientific, regulatory, and ethical progress. In agriculture, the journey moves from market assisted breeding today to plant based proteins and cultured meat, and potentially towards crops and enhanced photosynthesis. Defining how food systems may evolve over time, the consumer segment is progressing from direct to consumer genetic testing towards more personalized nutrition, biosensors for real time health monitoring, and over the longer term, therapies that may support healthier aging. And in materials and energy, bioroutes for drugs are expanding to biopolymers, with future applications potentially extending to bio solar cells and bio batteries. The takeaway is clear: value creation in biotech could accelerate as science, regulation, and infrastructure align. While the pace of adoption may vary across segments, the long term opportunity set remains substantial. Now let's look at where capital is flowing within biotech R&D. Genetic engineering commands the largest share, roughly 33%, and rightly so. CRISPR gene synthesis and synthetic biology, these are arguably the most transformative tools in modern science. Bioprocessing attracts around 27% because turning a breakthrough discovery into a scalable manufacturing product requires just as much capital as the discovery itself. Cell therapy captures around 20%, driven by advances in regenerative medicine. What this tells us is that the industry is not just focused on discovery, it is equally focused on translation, taking science from bench to bedside at scale. Funding in biotech surged during the pandemic, peaking in 2021 before normalizing in the years that followed. That correction was healthy. It separated speculative bets from genuinely differentiated science. The post COVID normalization is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of maturity. Capital is now flowing through greater discipline, backing platforms with real health clinical and commercial potential. Global biotech patent filings have grown 10 times over the past decade. That is not noise. This is a structural signal. Accelerating IP creation means accelerating innovation intensity. From an investment perspective, that IP moat translates directly into long term earnings visibility and competitive advantage. Even as funding cycles normalize, the underlying science and the protection of that science is only accelerating. Small pharmaceutical and biotech companies together account for 27.6% of the global drug development pipeline. That is a sector that represents a fraction of the industry's total capital base, yet it is responsible for more than a quarter of all drugs currently in development worldwide. This is because of loss of exclusivity, pricing pressure, and rapid technological advancement. And these are the factors that are forcing even the largest players to look externally for innovation. And that external innovation overwhelmingly is coming from biotech. Biotechnology, when you look at the entire spectrum, think of them as four distinct frontiers that scientists are simultaneously pushing forward. The first is biomolecules. Working at the level of DNA, RNA, and proteins, this is where gene therapies are being developed and increasingly translated into clinical applications. The second is biosystems engineering, entire cells, tissues, and organs. This field is opening possibilities in areas such as stem cell treatments and cultivated proteins. The third is biomachine interfaces, connecting biology with technology. Think of prosthetic limbs that may increasingly integrate with the nervous system. And fourth is biocomputing, using living cells themselves as computers. Scientists are now storing digital data inside strands of DNA. Four pillars, each one transformative on its own. Together, they represent a compounding wave of innovation that has the potential to reshape multiple industries over time. The rise of India's bioeconomy is closer to home. India's story in biotech is nothing short of remarkable, and the numbers speak for themselves. India's bioeconomy stood at $195 billion in 2025 with a CAGR of 17.8% over the last 5 years. It now contributes to 4.8% of India's GDP, and the ecosystem is home to over 11,800 biotech startups. This is not an emerging story. This is a sector that has moved beyond emergence and is entering a scaling phase, one that is only getting started. India's value creation when it comes to biotech is a compelling story that is going to unfold over the next few years. It is not dependent on any single segment. Bioindustrial applications lead in scale while commercial adoption. Biopharma drives export growth and therapeutic innovation, while bioservices and bio IT reflect India's rising strength in research and development and global capability centers. Bioagri supports long-term agriculture productivity and sustainability. Together, these segment mix reflects a structurally resilient ecosystem diversified across value creation opportunities in a way that few countries can match. Now let's talk about something very tangible, the fuel in your car. India has been on a remarkable journey to blend ethanol into petrol. Back in 2014, we were blending just 1.5% ethanol, and about 2023, that number has jumped to 12%, and the target for 2026 is 20%, meaning one-fifth of every liter of petrol sold at a pump across India will be biofuel based. Why does this matter? Because ethanol is produced from sugarcane, rice, and surplus food grains, things that India grows in abundance. While we are essentially converting agriculture waste into clean fuel that directly benefits sugarcane farmers who now have a guaranteed buyer for their produce. The economic impact is equally significant. At full scale, the program serves over 3.5 million tons of carbon dioxide every year, reduces particulate emission, and saves India essential forex reserves which would otherwise be used in crude oil imports. The pace of innovation in biotech is continuing to gain momentum. Artificial intelligence is increasingly being used to shorten drug discovery timelines and improve research efficiency. The same mRNA technology that enabled rapid vaccine development during the pandemic is now explored across oncology and other therapeutic areas. CRISPR based gene editing is gradually moving from research setting into clinical applications, while synthetic biology is enabling the development of entirely new materials and biological systems. While we are at the beginning of that curve, and that is precisely what makes the sector so compelling. Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.